and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Community Action Partnership and the California Community Economic Development Association. This is the first of our Community Economic Development Series webinars, so we're excited that you're here. This webinar is recorded, will be right on our website, and without further ado, I will turn it over to Glenn from CECITA.
I'm Glenn Sanada, and I'm with CECITA, the California Community Economic Development Association. We work outside of California. We're also known as the Center for Community Economic Development Assistance, and we keep the same acronym so people don't get too confused. So, without ado, let me get started in our program today. It is a really exciting subject because things are happening and changing pretty dramatically in our environment. There was a lot of funding available for food-related activities over the last years through the Obama administration. And because of that, a lot of programs have gotten off the ground, and there's a lot of exciting things happening throughout the country. We are going to try to focus a bit on healthy foods and look at kitchen incubators, but really kind of focused on job creation that these projects bring, which is interest to a lot of community organizations. This presentation, we're going to give an overview of various community economic development projects focused on healthy food and food distribution and production throughout the country. We want you to have a good understanding of the whole system from farm to fork, all the different touch food through that process. And in the process, there are a lot of different ways we organizations get involved with kind of supporting that process and working with other partners and getting food from farms to the community and ultimately to people's tables. Focus will be on job creation aspects of this type of activity. We will mention funding sources through the presentation, and then I'm going to use a lot of examples as we go forward. Our technical assistance team, this is the CECITA technical assistance team. Relevant, who was going to co-host this with me, had another event that he had to attend, so I'm going to do the solo. Again, the Director of Technical Assistance over at CECITA. I was a nonprofit for 2 years, focused on community development. We had a couple of spin-off social venture activities, as well as involved with a lot of affordable housing projects in my years there. After that, I joined Bank of America, their community development lending group. I was an investment officer as well as did a lot of lending, and then ultimately a regional manager at the bank. For about 15 years now, I've been with CECITA, working primarily in direct technical assistance and in capacity working with organizations who have different types of community development projects. This is a quick overview of CECITA so you know why we're involved with this kind of work and some of the other activities that we are involved in. We've got services that an association brings to its membership: continuing education, research. My focus and the organization's main focus these days have been on technical assistance, focused on organizational development, community economic development projects, and financial analysis. We really to work with groups who are doing projects. We won't do it for them, but we instead kind of help them through the process. So we want to kind of impart the knowledge on how to do deals and how to look at projects in a way where you're looking at feasibility as well as results. And we want that capacity to kind of stay with the organizations. Other activities include public policy, a lot of specialty programs, and other member services. Part-wise, we really rely on working with other organizations. One of them, we do a lot of work with the regulatory agencies, the Federal Reserve, Comptroller of Currency, and the FDIC. And if you made contact with your regional person in these regulatory agencies, you should. The ones who kind of connect us into a lot of different financial institutions, and you'd see in number 2 there some of the programs that we're involved in. But they're the ones who really kind of know what banks and financial institutions are interested in, which ones are looking to do more community development work, which ones are looking for specific types of projects in certain communities. So they're a really good leader on where money is and who's got it and who's doing what in the industry. So it's something to keep in mind when you're looking at projects going forward. So some things that we're involved in include a lot of healthy food related activities, but also a lot of financing related to new markets, tax credits, and other types of financing. On the federal level, and this is why our California group is so involved across the country, we're a subcontractor to a lot of different programs. The most important, I think, related to this industry is the HHS, Health and Human Services, Office of Community Services, Community Economic Development Program, and they have annual grants of up to $800,000 for community economic development projects. This year, and the applications just went in, I think they were due today or yesterday or sometime this week on this year's round, and I think there are roughly 30 million available, about 12 million set aside specifically for healthy food-related projects, and another 18 million for various community economic development projects, and a lot of them were healthy food-related. The remaining ones are different funding that comes from HUD that allows us to work in different rural communities as well as in the areas like the North American Development Bank has us working along the border. So it gets us to different parts of the country and with a chance to see a lot of different types of projects related to all community economic development, but especially on the healthy food side more recently. We work with a lot of national organizations. State level, we have a great partnership with the Community Action Agency Association here in California, but also with the State Community Services Department, which we get direct funding from them to work with community action agencies and providing technical assistance and working with them on their projects. So it's a great program, and it has really kind of working closely with a lot of folks out here in California. One thing that I want you that I'll leave with you, and it's really important, is our website. We have a lot of these development guides listed there that you can download and use at your leisure. They're all related to different aspects of community economic development, all the way from multifamily or affordable housing development projects to community facilities, commercial development. A lot of them focused on loan funds, different types of loan funds, as well as new markets tax credits, and kind of looking at financial services and financial education programs. So take at that if you're looking at wanting to do any projects in those areas, and very hands-on how-to guides, very detailed if you're trying to do a deal from kind of start to finish. It has resources listed in there. It also has other information related to people you should be talking to. It gives different hints and tips on things to look out for if you're getting involved in these types of projects. And this is done a couple years back when we were doing work with the National Partnership, and this is also on their website, so you can either pick it up on ours or the national website, Community Action Partnership website, and this information is there. Really good and handy if you're thinking of going into any of these areas. To look at it, if someone on your board staff has a harebrained idea to get into one of these different areas, download it, have them read it, and it'll probably spare them and keep them from wanting to go forward, because they are pretty detailed, and there's a lot of information there if you are going into those areas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about definitions that you've probably heard about food-related activities. One of them being food hubs, and it relates to incubators and other projects. But a food hub is basically a centralized facility where material enters, and that's food, raw food products, and the products go out. So, and in between there might be processing, or it could even raw vegetables going out through a distribution network. So it's a place where food comes in and goes out in different forms. But the part to it, and the important part that I want to stress, are the programs and services provided to the entities involved there. And these are the programs and services that makes the system work. And we're going to get into detail what a lot of those are. And a lot of those are that community economic development groups get involved in. There's different aspects, there's different expertise out there, so there's different areas where groups get involved. So food hubs are essentially a centralized facility, and it could be a warehouse, it could be a kitchen incubator, a commercial kitchen, a processing facility, or a culinary training facility. And in most cases, it's a combination of some or all these that are built into the project itself. So on one hand, you've got the physical structure, but I think what the most important piece is the programs and services that are provided to make everything work. And in a lot of cases, community organizations have been primarily just a facility provider, meaning that they'd be the ones who build a building and lease it out to tenants, which are all these different types of activities. So you can be a developer providing a building, or if you have a building, providing space for these activities, or you could have or build these warehouses or projects individually and have these types of activities involved in it. Again, what I'm trying to stress is it's more than a facility. It's an economic engine. It grows businesses and creates jobs. It supports community health initiatives, expands healthy food options in the community, and especially in the communities that most community action agencies serve. It's really bringing expanded opportunities in those communities. They create innovative partnerships and leverage resources, and leveraging resources is really an important part of this. So it's a facility that focuses programs and services, and some programs and services includes classroom training, technical support. And technical support meaning if groups or entrepreneurs are starting farms, it's helping them the licensing, helping them know how to farm, doing the soils testing, making sure the water supply is there, the real technical pieces to it. And so the business support, so you have an entrepreneur, they're going to have to learn how to manage a business all the way from the bookkeeping to managing staff, managing even expenses going forward. Provide marketing support is real important. Having access to capital is a real important service or program if you're talking about working with new entrepreneurs, starting businesses, or businesses expanding and trying to create a larger market. If they don't have access to capital, they're not going to be able to expand. So it's an important piece also. So we're going to talk a little bit about the structure, how food gets table essentially, and all the different pieces to it. And then I'm going to tie in different projects different projects and organizations that have used whatever they provide to kind of influence this whole system. So this is kind of the process or system. You've got on the top oval layer source being the farm where food is being produced. It could be a farm. It could be a series of community gardens. It could be a lot of different places where food comes from. It goes into the middle box where it's distributed, and then it's all tied into value-added processing. And value processing is, turning potatoes to potato chips. It's creating something more from the raw product, and the important part of that is that if you're into value-added processing, it really increases your margins, meaning farm tough, the margins are thin, meaning it's hard to make a lot of money. But within value-added processing, the margins are really wide, meaning you can make quite a money or a lot more than you can in any other part of the system. So value-added processing is a very, very important piece to this. Going through the distribution network, it could go to your community, and that's a gray box there, and that would be through farmers markets, CSAs, and food banks. CSAs are community-supported agricultural programs. The USDA-funded program where people subscribe to getting fresh food, and actually on a weekly basis, an organization or entity would get foods, bag it, and provide them with kind of their weekly bag of fresh vegetables or fruits and other items. And people subscribe to it. A lot of it is being sold in affluent communities or yuppie communities, and they can be charged a premium where that income is being used to kind of subsidize food going into folk really can't afford to pay those higher prices. And food also ends up on the food bank side. So that's kind of the market that a lot of community groups are involved in. A lot more also involved in retail stores, either bringing a market into your community or having your existing market be able to carry fresh fruits and vegetables, kind of expanding the menu. On the restaurant side, same thing, bringing them new sources of organic or healthy foods, as well as some groups have actually got into the restaurant business, and that could include culinary training programs, but a lot of it really tied into restaurant-type activities and channels. It ends up with the consumer. I added that box, the brown box up there, incubator and processing facilities. Now, I think I should actually add all those other items there, whether they're culinary institutes or they're other types of food-related facilities, because that feeds into the whole distribution and value-added processing part of the equation. So those are the different facilities that are involved in being able to bring food to these different retail-type outlets. Kind of break this down now. I'm going to look at all the different pieces here and talk about what organizations do in those specific areas so you have a better idea of the wide array of activities involved. And so I've got up in the upper left corner, that same chart. So we're going to talk about the source, the farm. This is of the South Central farmers in Los Angeles, and if you look at the picture up on the top left-hand corner, you can see a big green block area, and this is an industrial block in Los Angeles. It was used as a community garden, and it was probably utilized for a good 7 or 8 years until the city sold the land and to a developer who came in and bulldozed the whole thing. It got of national attention, and Hollywood got involved, and different famous people were involved in the whole kind of chaining themselves to the fences and keeping the bulldozers from taking out the community garden there. But ultimately they lost it. But what did happen, and that's kind of on the bottom of the page, is that the folks who were involved in this project organized. They organized into a co-op and really focused on marketing their product and getting their products to market. So they became entrepreneurs through their co-op structure. So this is a good example of an urban type farm that really got involved in producing product. The group, South Central Farmers, with all this notoriety, had some funds, and they leased land ended up in Fresno, and now they control some land in Kern County in the Bakersfield area. But as a co-op, they have really gone into production, and production coordination and marketing is a real important piece, and it's probably the biggest value added by a lot of community organizations. And that means that they are coordinating with the farmers to grow a certain amount of produce and different types of produce to meet market demand. So the coordinator will actually work with restaurants, work with stores, make sure that they have enough heads of lettuce that are coming in on a consistent basis, enough rushes, enough different types of fruit to meet the demand of their either market or restaurant. So that production coordination is a real important piece to it, and that's what they've been able to do. So now, instead of just being involved in a community garden, they become a co-op that's actually doing big acreage of farming and providing food product to different markets. This is an example in Hawaii. So you back east, I'll take you out to the Pacific Islands here. Hawaii, and this is in Honolulu, primarily in Honolulu. There is Pacific Gateway Centers in Honolulu itself, in Chinatown, but the farm that's probably about 25 miles out of the city, and it's essentially an old pineapple. I think it's an old plantation that when they left the island, they left it to a trust who's been kind of leasing out land. And so they have about, I think this is 70-something acres, and they've got entrepreneurial farmers. Now, they serve new immigrants, primarily from the Pacific Islands, and they are teaching them to become farmers. They'll have their own plots of land. They're providing them a lot of classroom training, English as a second language, a lot of cultural training, but also teaching them how to farm, teaching business management and how to start their businesses, and working with them on marketing their products. The other important thing they provide is capital. They have an entrepreneurial microloan program that provides funding so these individuals could actually get their businesses started. I think bellies up there on top that they're growing. They grow all kinds of crops, a lot of mango and different types of fruits, as well as a big thing they're doing now, sugar cane, which you see there in the past, but they're for sugar cane, and they've been growing that. And then their more recent activity has been in free roaming chickens. So they've been selling the eggs and getting heavily involved into that industry. They're looking at aquaponics, using tilapia and using the water from the fish tanks to provide the nutrition in the water for kind of a hydroponic farm. So they're looking into that also. But I'll talk more about them because these guys are very much vertically integrated. They go all the way from the farm through the whole distribution network, providing a lot of activities focused on entrepreneurial development, really focused on job creation. This organization, Latino Community Development in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we're now focused on that next box, distribution, value-added processing, and these are really focused on distribution. Distribution center includes a giant refrigeration and storage facility, and they provide the production coordination. They work with 3 or 4 co-ops, 3 or 4 farm groups out in the rural areas, and they help them manage what they should be growing and at what volume. It comes to their distribution center, and then the different, whether it's restaurants or stores, pick up whatever they need from them on a consistent basis. They also deliver. Picture up on the right, you see the big bay door there. They actually have outfitted a bus into kind of a mobile food market, a mobile healthy food market that goes into food desert communities. Now these folks have gotten an OCS grant to do various aspects of their project here, including the bus itself and the distribution facility. But this organization, it's interesting. They use the OCS grants as an equity investment. They use the money to capitalize nonprofit businesses, one being distribution, another one being kind of the operations of the buses, and hopefully at some point spin them off as separate nonprofit activities going forward. So they are more of an investor using government funds, yes, in this case, to start up business activities focused around healthy food projects in the community. Theater del Norte in New Mexico, they received an OCS grant also to develop a distribution facility. They've gotten a couple of them over the last couple of years, and they've started an energy bar, getting in value-added production. They've gotten into creation of an energy bar that's being sold that's picked up by a lot of the major national markets and outlets. And so they've gotten grants to expand those businesses, creating a number of jobs. But in this instance, on the distribution side, they're working with farmers in the rural parts of northern New Mexico who have had farms for generations and generations. But the more recent, last couple of generations, people aren't into farms. Kids have gone to college and moved to the big cities. And so they're in danger of losing their water rights if they don't farm. So they're kind of re-energizing farming in their community, creating a distribution network, and key being, again, having that production coordinator that is actually looking at markets where they can sell their food. Back to South Central farmers, I mentioned how important value-added processing is. They're pushing heavily on moving their entrepreneurs and the co-ops into value-added processing because of the margins involved, being able to make a heck of a lot more money in this product than in raw vegetables and fruits. So they sell their items through different CSAs, the community-supported agricultural programs, farmers markets, and on web sales. So they've been very successful in penetrating that market under a common label. Distribution, value-added processing, a very important piece that groups have gotten involved in. Back in Hawaii, they've taken a little bit different approach. They're helping entrepreneurs get their products to market instead of just kind of a joint shared labeling program. But they also do that also. So they're working with entrepreneurs, helping them get their product to market. Decide what the salad dressing is doing very, very well. He's one of their top sellers. who made a lot of the markets in islands there. On the joint enabling side, with all our entrepreneurs, they're reaching markets by doing a common label that sells different products to different retail outlets. The bottling activity is their own social enterprise, and received an OCS grant to this bottling, and it's been very successful, and a lot of their entrepreneurs are being able to bottle a lot of different items and getting them to markets. Kamino Services Unlimited in Los Angeles. This CSA, and you can see that's kind of the bag vegetables that go out on a weekly basis. They also opened up, they do a lot of work with community gardens, coordinating a lot of their activities, and they sell their produce at community food stands, which are located at or near a lot of the schools in the area. They have a lot of programs, educational programs they're working out with the school district. And so they've set the school sites, and it's also a good pickup point for the CSA type activities. They really are working and creating their own business enterprises. They've got a catering company and are looking at other different retail outlets. They do work with retailers and provide fresh foods for them to some of the smaller markets and communities that don't have the capacity to have refrigeration or carry a lot of goods. Come in, provide fresh foods that are displayed, and take away on a daily or bi-weekly basis so the food stays fresh. At least it creates more access to healthy foods in these communities. Looking at orange box in the process, retail stores, this group in Stanislaus County in California. The interesting thing about them is that they are a community development organization, but they also are the WIB, the Workforce Investment Board, getting a lot of Department of Labor money to actually provide and subsidize a lot of the employment training. So in this project, they received an OCS grant to put an equity investment into the business itself to locate into a food desert community. But they also were able to provide more incentives, such as a lot of the training dollars through their Workforce Investment Board. So a lot of the organizations that are out there, you should know who your Workforce Investment Board folks are, because they get a lot of the DOL money focused on job training and placement type activities, and coupled with what you're trying to do in terms of creating jobs, it's a good natural tie to be connected. Being a developer, this is a group in NA who actually developed shopping centers. They did both of these in central LA, kind of after, even as far back as the Watts riots and the more recent civil unrest. While recent, it's been over close to 15 years now. But they've developed shopping centers. This is one of them. In both of them, they were either in one of them were the general partner, the other a limited partner, but kind of a managing partner for the different projects. So, they're like a step further in actually developing real estate projects to bring in food to communities. The Pacific Gateway Center opened up a restaurant which highlighted a lot of food from their food incubator, which I'll show you in a little while. But they opened up this restaurant space, and they called it the Lemongrass Restaurant, and they highlighted foods from different chefs and entrepreneurs, and on a daily basis would rotate around. Some days they would have Thai food, Chinese food, Burmese food, and kind of rotate around. This restaurant is located in Chinatown, so they had a lot of foot traffic. They kind of evolved that and started doing a lot more pop-up restaurants, which are entrepreneurs who kind of have run a restaurant for a whole evening where they provide full meals and kind of test their ideas to the marketplace. Now, the lady down below is started out as an entrepreneur, did a couple of pop-up restaurants that were successful, and then now are very, very successful. And so they occupy that space, that restaurant space, on a full-time basis. They're kind of like the new hot yuppie restaurant in Chinatown, in Honolulu, and there's like a line of people out there all the time trying to get in. So they've been very successful in kind of moving that aspect of the industry forward. Kind of the restaurant line, but more related to food services and a lot of different programs that you might be involved in. This is actually a homeless shelter in Honolulu, and on the roof they put together an aquaponics farm, and they've installed a solar system. So the tilapia on the right there, whose water is being circulated into the organic vegetables, and kind of it through there, providing a lot of nutrients, very good nutrients, and it drops back into the tanks. So the shelter itself provides foods, and now they've got access to fresh organic vegetables as well as fresh fish on an ongoing basis that they integrate into their meals. So it's something, I mean, this is Honolulu, so using their rooftop space, it's really important. You know, prices are crazy to even think of opening a farm or something like that. The incubator model, we're going to talk a lot about incubators here. This is Cocina in San Francisco, and they're on the next slide also. But typically they take food ideas. The incubator provides knowledge and connections, and it gets them to markets. That's the simple process of what an incubator does. And this is a picture of their building. They've got one large kitchen. They work with entrepreneurs. They provide training. They provide a lot of assistance related business startups. They provide marketing assistance, and they have access to capital. They work with the different funds as partners to provide financing for entrepreneurs. And in Hawaii, this is their incubator that they have. This is the biggest one probably that we've seen or even know about. But it's about a good 17,000 square foot building. It's got 9 different kitchens on the first floor, different size kitchens, some focus on baking and other types of facility kitchen type equipment. But the 9 kitchens are used by entrepreneurs on a continual basis. You've got classroom space upstairs, and mostly upstairs is storage space for the different entrepreneurs. So they use the kitchen. This was done with EDA money, the Economic Development Administration money, which is another great source for funding these projects. EDA was also under the gun by the administration to get more involved in supporting healthy food activities. So they've been doing food hubs, been involved in looking at food hubs throughout the country and investing dollars in them. Now, EDA has a higher ceiling. I mentioned OCS up to $800,000. EDA goes up, I think, to $1.5 million in some of their programs and higher in other ones. They require kind of a local match, but theirs is strictly grant dollars that go into projects. With EDA money, so they've got classrooms, and they also, they have their own social enterprises, and that's part of the joint labeling and marketing effort that they're involved in, as well as a bottling activity, and they're looking at a couple of other ones. They've received a lot of OCS grants through the year, one to start their kind of restaurant incubator project in Chinatown, one to kind of retrofit this building. They got it solarized because they do use a lot of energy, electricity for refrigeration. That's one aspect perspective, an incubator people don't think about is that their operating expenses are extraordinary, and so any way to cut down on that becomes very, very important. The South Central farmers, like I mentioned, they got into value-added processing. So they're up in the Bakersfield area, which is about a 2-hour drive back in LA, bringing their product back and process it down here in LA, and then they ship out to markets in Los Angeles and Ventura County. So we're talking about contiguous counties, but we're talking about drives of 150 miles between each point that they're doing this processing. This is their processing facility. Paul, Minnesota, this is one under construction, kind of a kitchen incubator project. And again, they're focused on entrepreneurial development, taking some of the folks who are part of their farm activities and getting them into kind of value-added activities as well as joint marketing activities. This is kind of logic model for an incubator project, and this is La Cocina's. And it really kind of outlines what makes it work, the middle there being the value proposition. Their goal is to create successful entrepreneurs. And you look over on our left, the key partners involved, between local government as well as banks, as well as other programs, and the expertise on your board of directors. Is the enterprise technical assistance program that's local up in the San Francisco area. The key activities are involved in providing technical assistance, access to markets, the resources being the staff, their kitchen, their expertise, their ability to enter markets, and then the whole other side, where their channels are for support and how they get their food out. On the bottom there, cost structure, there's expenses involved, and you cover that through your revenue stream there on the right, and a lot of it related to rent space, providing classrooms, activities, as well as they do an annual street food festival in San Francisco, and they get a lot of their funding from their activities there. Back in Honolulu again, you can see, you mentioned, I guess, earlier that they are kind of vertically integrated. They do everything from farming to value-added processing. They've got a kitchen incubator. They've got restaurants. They've got other outlets. They're getting involved in different parts of the business. So classroom level, you've got classroom programs, but you also kind of looking across horizontally here, business technical assistance and management. From their farm businesses, they provide crop technical assistance, marketing, sales, but then also have access to land and access to micro loans and financing, which, again, is an important piece. You can train and work with entrepreneurs all you want. You can get people to start business or wanting to expand, but unless they have access to capital, it won't work. Either having your own loan fund or having a CDFI, a community development financial institution in your region who will work with you. It's important to have dollars available. The incubator and kind of the restaurant, all really kind of supporting business activities they're involved in. So Pacific Gateway in Hawaii, they've gotten a new initial 160 acres kind of across from the land they're already farming. The 70-something acres they have, they're going to get a new lump of 160 acres that someone's providing them. They also get into 60 acres on the Big Island, so they're going inner island now, and they have specialty items growing there that can only grow in that climate. On their farm, the picture that you saw of their farm, they're building another kitchen there, kind of on-site kitchen, and they're using containers as the buildings for their project. And it's interesting because they have so much land that they have. It's kind of like dominoes. They have each container kind of separated. One couple for refrigeration, couple for storage, couple tied into different kitchen type activities. So it's an interesting pattern, and they've used kind of container reuse as their main building material. Connection partnership of Kern, we're working with them and a possible partnership with the Southern California farmers. Since farmers have to go all the way up and down to their site of where their food is, it seemed natural that they can form sort of partnership with Cap Kern up there. Cap Kern looking at expanding their Head Start kitchen. They need a larger kitchen for their Head Start program. So we've been talking about some way of integrating a processing facility and other programs and services, and that's what we're kind of exploring right now to see what makes sense in terms of entrepreneurial development or other types of opportunities that kind of await there. So this is going to look a lot like a food hub and have pieces of a lot of different things to kind of generate the interest in different services tied into it. Now, community programs that are providing Head Start, it's a good base also for a lot of value-added products stand up. So there's kind of a natural tie that seems to make sense. No Gas Community Development down on the border there. They're building a kitchen incubator also. They're using OCS funds, but they're also in containers, but theirs is more kind of different twist on it. They've like 4 or 5 containers connected together to form their main kitchen, and they have separate containers on the outside for retail spaces as entrepreneurs start growing and testing retail products. That's going to be there. But the kind of neat thing about them is they're right downtown in Nogales, probably about 2 blocks away from the border there on a couple sides, and right downtown, and that's where they have this kitchen incubator. They have a business incubator they're putting together that has received some funding from HUD, and so they're all going to work in conjunction with creating new entrepreneurs as well as expanding opportunities by growing businesses in the community. Now, this fourth one is a real interesting one, and learning more about it right now. I don't know all the details, but the Asian Americans for Equality, otherwise known as AFI, they're based in New York City. They're the biggest community development group in Chinatown up there, doing a lot of affordable housing, mixed-use projects, real expensive stuff. And they've got a partnership with a group in Kansas City to develop a food hub in Kansas City. And the expertise that they're bringing in is that, they've worked with New Markets tax credits before to bring in equity into projects, and EB-5 financing, which is that comes through the immigration system, where immigrants, if they invest $1 million, I think it's $1 million. I think the number changed from $2 million to $1 million, and they invest it into job-creating efforts that are given more or less for immigration status to come to the country. So it's kind of like buying their way into the U.S. And so EB-5 financing, the whole goal is to create jobs, so it provides equity into projects. New Market tax credits, it's an interesting product. It's tax credits focused on commercial development. And New Markets, essentially it'll cover roughly 26 to 27% of your development costs. So, but it's for higher cost projects. So if you've got like a $7 million project, 27% of it could be covered by equity, and that equity is generated because the projects get or apply for tax credits. Once a project has tax credits, sell them to an investor. So an investor is buying these credits, and they use them over a period of time where they offset their income, and the dollars kind of stay in the project after a 5-year period. So it's a bump in money into your project. I use 6 or 7 million because the cost of doing a market tax credit deal is very high, and if you don't have it higher than about 6 million, too much of the money goes straight into lawyers and everyone else involved in the project, and very little ends up with the project. So it's an expensive program, but it's going around focused on commercial development or non-housing type activities. EB financing, we're learning more and more about it, but it's a real specialty. So again, I'm summarizing everything, and I added that new box there on the left in kind of that beige yellow color, and that's services and partnerships. So I think the system works, and community groups get involved in those two outside boxes, either providing facilities in terms of incubators or other types of facilities, but also the kind of the coordination work in the middle section there related to processing and distribution. And then what we bring, we meaning community organizations, are services and partnership needed to make it work. Now you say in the example, why and do everything themselves. They've got programs and funding from through immigration programs to cut out of those expenses. But in other instances, we're talking about partnerships where you partner with a CDFI to bring in funding or capital, access to capital, or partner with a training group that provides entrepreneurial training, or partner with a group who provides the kind of the food knowledge, and whether it's processing or whether it's in distribution, managing distribution. So it's important pieces that if you don't have or you don't provide, you could partner to bring into your project. Or you could be any piece of this project. You could the developer of retail space. You could be running an ESA program. Anything along this process are opportunities that are available for organizations. And it's really important that you really look at what you're good at and couple that with, what the project should be or what you can do to add value to the process while you're able to create jobs and while you're able to businesses grow. Let's see. One thing that popped up here, the 8,000 from OCS, and it is per project. So we've seen groups, and you can have 3 operating projects at any one time. You can't get it in the same year, but you can apply for them, and you can have 3 operating. So in three years, in a period, you can have one, and one, and they can be operating together. And it's flexible, like, some of the examples showed you can use it for the facility, developing a facility. You can use it to capitalize a social enterprise. You can use it as investment dollars where you entice a business to locate in your community. So a lot of ways you can use OCS funding, and it has that flexibility and works real well with community economic development projects. The thing is, OCS comes out of HHS, and it's essentially in the same department as where a lot of funding for community action programs come from. So the director there is the same director for both programs. So there should be kind of a natural tie between where that funding's coming from and a lot of the activities that you're involved in. just about it. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. We covered a lot of information. There's a lot related to different funding activities. I was just back in D.C. So since they provide this funding, they have an annual conference, and we go back there and talk to a lot of different folks doing things. But there's a group in Indianapolis called Farm 365, and they are really into hydroponic farming, and they have I think it's 8,000 or 12,000 square foot building, and since in most of the country you can't grow year round, but hydroponically inside of a building you can. And they've been very, very successful in their indoor product there, and I think it's a small 8,000 square feet, but it might be more. And vertically they can work up and down, and that's what they did. They've done the first row, and they're starting their second row of crops, I guess, and been very successful. And they've received more grant money, and they're going to do a second building that's about the same size. So Farm 365 in Indianapolis, in Anacostia in D.C., in the community right outside of D.C. That community organization has a really kind of interesting project going. They're working with some professors at the local college, developing all aquaponic systems. So this is the one with the tilapia and organic farm tied into it. And there are many systems throughout neighborhoods in their community, and they're working with the local schools as sites for this project. So each school or each community or community center that they're working with will have this facility, and they're using it as one for food production, but also as kind of a training platform to teach kids and other folks about the food as well as production of food. So it's an interesting project. And so chance, if you're interested in the OCS grants, look up HHS OCS CED on the website, and they have a list of all the projects they funded, and you'll probably see people on there who are doing projects, and other really interesting ones that kind of pop up there. And as I mentioned earlier, or at the start of this, it's an evolving industry, and there's a lot of opportunities for community groups because you're the natural tie between resources and where the needs are in your community. And a lot of you folks who are with community action agencies already have a network for distribution. You have outlets for food activities, so it's kind of a neat match. And if it's something that you don't do, it's something that you might want to coordinate in your communities. And I think that's about it for me. If you have any other questions, shoot them over, but I'm going to turn this back to Natalie.
Thank you much, Glenn. That was a great first kickoff to our CE webinar series. If you do have any further questions, you can send them through the chat window just while I'm going over this last slide. I did just want to remind everybody that there are 3 more webinars in the series occurring over the next couple of months. They each $20 plus that service fee. These are co-hosted with Cocina, with Glenn and Ralph, so we are thrilled to be partnering with them. The website at the top, the bit.ly, just allows you to access all webinars in one place. You can register for them separately or all together. So I would encourage you to share what you learned today and also share the announcement about these other webinars so that we get more people really involved in this kind of community level impact. So just like any further questions have come in, so I will let that sort of conclude the webinar for today, unless you have anything else, Glenn.
Yeah, add one last item. I do get around the country quite a bit, and we'll be at the annual partnership conference. So if you are thinking of doing something in any of these areas or have questions, look us up. We'll be around at the conferences and be glad to talk to folks. And then other times, when we're out on other types of projects, we can come on with it who's nearby, and we're glad to kind of help or give you any input that we have. So feel free to do that, and feel free to email me.
Great. That conference is the annual convention, August 30th through September 2nd in Austin, Texas. And registration is open on the communityactionpartnership.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a